Do you see a long line of RVs parked on the side of the road in San Francisco? Not camping, nor big events or parades. Those RVs stood there silently, essentially the mobile homes of homeless people in this city. On the bustling streets, the image of these four-wheeled houses is now so familiar that it is gradually becoming a new normal. However, behind that are strict regulations, turning finding a temporary shelter into illegal acts. San Francisco, a city once praised for its openness and creativity, is becoming a legal pitfall for its most vulnerable residents. The RVs were towed away and the camps were removed, leaving the result that helplessness, resentment, and despair spread in the community. In today's video, we'll look straight at the alarming reality of San Francisco. The seemingly orderly policies are pushing the most vulnerable into a spiral of criminalization. San Francisco City, once known as Golden Bridge Gate, leads to hope and prosperity, is now becoming a symbol of decline. Crossing the legendary bridge, people can no longer find the American dream, but only the nightmares that prevail. In 2025, San Francisco saw the worst homeless crisis in its history. According to official figures, more than 8,300 people are living on the sidewalks, under bridges, in worn-out RVs, or more fortunately, have a slot in the city's shelters. But advocacy groups say the actual number may have exceeded 20,000 people, because many people are in a situation where hidden homeless is easily missed in statistics. And if current trends don't stop, the homeless population is forecast to reach 35,000 people by 2030, twice as many as just a decade ago. In particular, the Tenderloin neighborhood and the South of Market neighborhood have become the city's actual quarantine zone, where nearly 60% of homeless people are concentrated with a small temporary bed system. But for many people, Tenderloin is more than just a shelter. It is also labeled as a flea market of vices, where poverty is mixed with a public vices crisis, untreated mental illness, and a seemingly never-ending atmosphere of chaos. That unrest is clearly reflected in street crime. In 2025 alone, the region recorded nearly 1,947 incidents of conflict and lightning theft, a 12% increase from the previous year. In Tenderloin, not only are humans in danger, but even a can of Spam meat in a supermarket is no longer safe. But behind those behaviors is a truth that few people want to look directly at: inflation. Despite signs of cooling down, prices are still sky high, leaving the already poor even more exhausted. When a box of milk or loaf of bread becomes a burden, shoplifting is not simply a crime, it is also a desperate protest. Society often encapsulates their fate in soulless numbers, then labels them lazy or vices. But the truth is, behind that are pieces of life that were once very ordinary. Construction workers, waiters, taxi drivers, people who have been instrumental in feeding this city for decades. Just one fall, lost their job, a medical bill beyond their ability to pay, was enough to get them out of the way. And the way back is almost blocked by unreasonable housing costs, half-hearted support policies, and the widening gap between rich and poor. Once you fall, it's almost impossible to get up. San Francisco, which once dazzled with the gold rush and the glorious years, is now engulfed in a homeless rush spreading everywhere. The opposition between the golden past and the dark present makes regret even more painful. Because anyone, from a hard worker to a middle-class family, can become the next victim of this crisis. If a sudden fall can turn an ordinary person into homelessness, are any of us truly safe? If a city that was once a symbol of the American dream has now turned into the nightmare of tens of thousands of people, then what is the meaning of the American dream here? And that's not all. Instead of opening a way out, San Francisco is turning those miserable people into criminals through a series of policies that criminalize the homeless. And this is just the beginning of a bigger nightmare waiting ahead. Do you dare to believe it? In San Francisco, poverty is now gradually being treated as a sin, and the homeless are now gradually becoming criminals. For decades, the city has faced a wave of homeless people living in RVs, four-wheeled houses parked along the avenue. And by 2025, that crisis will not only stop, but will also expand to record levels, erasing any hope of a sustainable solution. Along the boulevards at San Francisco, you can see nearly 500 large RVs lining the streets. To many, they look nothing more than worn-out cars taking up space. But for the families inside, it is all property, a roof over the rain and sun, where a child has a place to return, or an old man has a place to lie down without fear of the sky shining on the earth. However, those temporary houses have become the focus of controversy. They are considered to hinder traffic, deface the urban landscape, and are even considered dangerous for the people themselves. That has caused the city to introduce a series of new bills: limit RV parking on the road for no more than 2 hours, encourage people to leave RVs to move to fixed houses with rental subsidies. There is even a program to buy vehicles from households. It sounds reasonable, but when the solution is given only to solve the tip of the problem, another problem will definitely arise. San Francisco already has a severe shortage of affordable housing. Demand goes beyond supply, especially with immigrants in a patron city like this one. And when they are not given accommodation, but they are not allowed to stay in the RV either, those people have only two options left: move to another area or leave the city. But the paradox is that neighboring cities like Oakland are also struggling with the same crisis, leaving them in a dilemma. They can't live, but they don't know where to go. Some people justify living on the street is not good for them. But if there isn't enough support to make the dream of a true home come true, then whether living in an RV or living completely under a curtain of heaven and earth is a better choice. The answer, perhaps all of us know well. When policy targets RVs are not the root of the problem, the crisis is compounded by the crisis. Homeless people not only lose their refuge, but also have to face the law, being fined, pulled, even deported from the only place they call house. Criminalizing homelessness not only makes people more miserable, but also weighs heavily on public budgets, from police, court, emergency medical costs, to community image and the local tourism industry. Why has a city that once promised to be a land of opportunity now turned into a place where the right to life has gradually become a luxury for the weakest people? And when the city chooses to deport rather than heal, are we pushing the weak into a dead end with no way out? San Francisco in 2025 is at a difficult crossroads. The city, which was known for its steep, foggy streets and the shimmering lights of the Golden Gate Bridge, is now the epicenter of a low-cost housing crisis. People no longer talk about the California dream with a smile, but instead worry about how to pay the rent next month. The shortage of affordable housing is not a new story, but now it has reached an alarming level. A host of historical and current factors combine to form the grim picture. Restrictive zoning laws, patterns of racism that existed decades ago, plus rising demand as the tech and service workforce returns after the pandemic. More than half of San Francisco's land area is still limited to apartment housing development, especially in wealthy and traditional neighborhoods, making it nearly impossible to build low-income housing options. What are the consequences? Rent prices have skyrocketed to unbelievable levels. Recent reports show that the average rental price in San Francisco hovers around $3,500 per month. Even a shabby one-bedroom apartment can range from more than $3,000 to nearly $3,500, while a two-bedroom apartment typically exceeds $4,000. For families doing normal work, that huge expense is like a sentence forcing them to leave the city. Single-family rental homes are still available, but are often just out of reach as prices are even higher. Not only prices, but the rental market is also increasingly tight. Vacancy rates fell to their lowest level in years, while demand continued to rise sharply. Technology companies are bringing employees back to the office, leading to a wave of new tenants. As a result, rents continue to escalate, up from 8 to 13% year on year. For those who thought they could stick with San Francisco, the city now seems to be whispering a cold message. You can no longer afford to stay. Meanwhile, working families, retirees who rely on social security, or service workers such as nurses, teachers, supermarket workers, are all at a crossroads. Or they accept spending most of their income paying rent, living in anxiety and uncertainty. Or they have to leave the place they were once attached to, looking for a new, cheaper, but more remote place. No matter which way they choose, they carry a loss. The loss of community, the loss of a sense of security, the loss of a part of the dream that was once promised. The solution to this problem cannot come from a single direction. It requires a combination of policy reform, financial support, and cooperation from the whole community. Several major brands and non-profits have begun to participate, sponsoring affordable housing projects and rental assistance programs. For example, initiatives from Habitat for Humanity are scaling up to provide long-term solutions for low-income families. These are not only houses, but also the first step towards restoring the sense of belonging of people who have been pushed to the margins. When a wealthy city like San Francisco still leaves thousands of people unable to afford a roof, what value does the basic human rights have? And if the weak are left behind today, can we ourselves be sure tomorrow that we will not find ourselves in the same situation? San Francisco was once considered a mecca of prosperity, where giant technology corporations and talented people from all over flocked to find opportunities. But after 2020, this picture took a different turn. Successive economic shocks, from recessions and interest rate fluctuations to waves of layoffs in the technology industry, have left tens of thousands of residents in a precarious situation. Many people who used to have stable jobs with good salaries now have to live on unemployment benefits or part-time work. Recent reports show that unemployment in the Bay Area has skyrocketed at times, particularly in the technology sector, which is the city's economic mainstay. When industry giants cut staff to restructure, the consequences spread to a series of other sectors, from restaurants, services, retail to rental real estate. When jobs are scarce, housing pressures become more dreadful. Workers who lost their jobs could not afford the already sky-high rent. Many had to leave the city. Others were forced to move into RVs or even the streets. Families that were once middle class and had stable incomes now face the risk of social decline after just a few months without a job. This condition not only affects people who lose their jobs, but also causes a domino effect. Small businesses, which depended on the spending power of the working class and technology workers, were forced to downsize or close. The once busy streets now have many empty shops, posted with "for lease" signs. Behind every closed door are a series of lost stories, from shop owners having to quit their jobs to service staff losing a small source of income. In that gloomy picture, a number of support efforts have emerged. Many non-profits offer free meals, job training programs, and legal assistance to help people hold out. Some large companies, such as Salesforce, have launched community initiatives to support reskilling of affected workers, while funding temporary housing assistance programs. Although not enough to completely change the situation, these are still positive signals that the community can share the burden together. What happens to a city when those who were once the backbone of the economy no longer have a place to survive? And as the San Francisco dream turns into a nightmare for its own residents, how much hope remains for a fairer future? If you look at the streets of central San Francisco, many people only see makeshift tents, old RVs, and rows of people living through the day. But hidden deep inside those images is another crisis that few people mention: mental health. Behind every tired face are stories of anxiety, depression, and despair. This is no longer simply a housing issue, but a tragedy of the breakdown in the human care system. For many years, San Francisco has been viewed as a city with strong public health support programs. However, growing demand has outstripped responsiveness. Health centers for low-income people are often overloaded. Waiting lists to see a psychologist can last weeks, even months. For those living on the sidewalk, that time is too long, because they need help immediately. The image of fallen people right next to modern high-rise buildings has become a scar of the city. How can a wealthiest and most progressive city let thousands of people live in despair without a way out? The cause of this condition lies not only in high medical costs, but also in social distance. For many homeless people, going to a hospital or clinic is a luxury. They have no insurance cards, no identification documents, and are even afraid to face an inherently strange and complex system. Therefore, they continue to sink into their own pain without anyone knowing. Still, there were glimmers of light. Many non-profits have intervened, bringing psychological services directly to where homeless people live. Some community projects provide temporary shelters where they can bathe, rest, and receive basic spiritual counseling. But these efforts are still small, patchy, and not enough to turn the whole picture around. The core issue is this: mental health should be seen as a fundamental right, on an equal footing with the right to shelter and to adequate food. Only when society sees spiritual care as a foundation rather than a luxury can it break the vicious cycle that pushes people from despair to evil. One possible direction is to combine technology with community health services. Many major brands in the technology and healthcare sectors have begun implementing remote emotional support applications, helping to connect users with experts in a short time. If integrated and popularized, these tools can become a bridge to save people on the brink, not just in San Francisco, but across the country. Do we accept that the weak continue to sink into the darkness of mental pain and be labeled vices? Or will we choose to see them as people who need to be healed and given the opportunity to start over? The influx of immigrants to San Francisco has long been an important part of the city's story. With the Sanctuary City policy, where authorities are committed to protecting immigrants regardless of legal status, San Francisco becomes a destination for those looking for hope for a new, safer, more humane. But underneath that shell of welcoming city, a harsh reality is evident. Many immigrants, instead of finding a stable home, face the risk of homelessness right on the land that was once considered is paradise. Crowded streets where the lights still glow at night are a reluctant haven for immigrant families who cannot find suitable housing. Some people are ineligible to rent due to lack of proper documentation, while others do not have a support network for relatives or the community, and so are prone to losing their accommodation. When combined with sky-high rents in San Francisco, the dream of a home suddenly becomes more distant than ever. This situation is not merely the story of a few individuals, but reflects a broader reality of the tension in the urban housing system. Many areas of the city have seen an increase in the number of temporary tents, where many immigrants are crowded with other residents who have been pushed to the margins of society. From a place that promises to be a safe harbor, San Francisco is becoming a place where dreams and reality collide violently, leaving behind damaged lives. To deal with this crisis, the city needs a combination of government, business, and community. Some solutions may include expanding temporary housing programs, improving legal support systems, and creating more affordable housing options for both indigenous and immigrant residents. This is where big brands can participate, not only through charity programs, but also by partnering with authorities in building social infrastructure. Names like Salesforce, which has repeatedly participated in community initiatives in San Francisco, can become important bridges in turning hope into reality. Can a city really be a shelter if thousands of immigrants have to sleep on the sidewalk? And in a modern society, do we accept the dream of a safe home becoming a privilege reserved only for the few? For years, San Francisco has faced a bitter paradox. The city spends a lot of money to tackle homelessness, but the numbers are not falling. They are showing signs of increasing. One of the reasons lies in the way previous policies were implemented, is sometimes short-term, not taking into account the long-term consequences. When temporary camps are dismantled, the original image can give the feeling of a cleaner, more beautiful city. But in reality, that's just moving the problem from one street corner to another. Persons forced out of temporary shelters are not provided with a viable alternative. They don't have a stable home to return to, and this only causes the vicious cycle of homelessness to continue to recur. People often witness tents being packed up in the morning, then just a few days later appeared somewhere else not far away. The so-called settlement is essentially just relocation, and as a result, the city is both expensive and increases social tensions. People in the neighborhood feel insecure, and homeless people lose more trust in the system. The irony is that these same policies create a counterproductive cycle. In the absence of a lasting solution, homeless people are forced to return to the streets where they are vulnerable to new laws. The more times they are displaced, the harder it is for them to find stable employment or access social services, because everything from paperwork to mental health is disturbed. It's a never-ending spiral. In that context, many observers have spoken out saying that the city needs a different approach. Instead of pushing away, must be rebuilt. The solution is not just to eliminate temporary tents or RVs, but to invest in affordable housing, medical assistance, and vocational training programs. In particular, coordination with the private sector could open up more sustainable directions. Big names like Airbnb, which are already familiar in the housing sector, can play a role in providing a temporary solution, helping the homeless have a safe place to stay while waiting for their turn to be allocated permanent home. Would a city that once boasted the slogan of innovation and humanity dare to change its approach so as no longer to turn the weak into double victims of policy? And if lessons from the past are not learned, can San Francisco find a way out of this worsening crisis? San Francisco is at a dangerous crossroads. Either continue to push the weak to the sidelines with half-hearted policies, or truly see them as people in need of support and opportunity. If the city was once considered a symbol of freedom and hope, it must now prove that the value is not only for the rich, but for everyone. Will we let a city that once shone for humanity become a symbol of insensitivity? And if San Francisco can treat the most needy people like that, which city will be next? What do you think about this? Please share your views below. If you find this story important, click like, share to let more people know, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming analysis. Your opinion is what nourishes this discussion. Please leave a comment below. The content in this video was created for the purpose of sharing information and provoking reflection on social issues. We do not declare this to be an absolute truth, nor do we represent any organization or government agency. Some of the data in question are general, insufficiently verified, and serve only to illustrate the big picture. Every analytical opinion in the video comes from an independent perspective, with the only desire to create connection, empathy, and dialogue in the community.